What's going on, everybody? This is the host of Recover Out Loud podcast, Sean Young. Before we dive in, I want to be clear. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not here to diagnose or treat. I'm simply a catalyst, someone who's walked through the fire and now speaks from experience, reflection, and a deep desire to help others find their way forward. This podcast may include honest conversations about addiction, mental health challenges, and suicidal thoughts or ideations. These are real parts of the human experience, and we won't shy away from them. If you're listening, please do so with self-care and self-awareness. And if you're struggling, please reach out. There's help out there. And most importantly, there's hope. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let's get it. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Recover Out Loud, episode 101. What a wild episode. We made it over the hump of 100. I'm so happy about that. And we are just full steam forward. Today, our guest, very awesome guest, we've got Jacki Fleniken. How you doing, Jacki?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be number 101. Like, that's awesome that you've done 100 episodes and I get to go into the next 100. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. And shameless plug here. If you haven't seen episode 100, that's my life update. That's where I share where I've been since leaving Alaska and moving back home. And so it's a crazy episode. And so there's a bit of an update from episode 1 to episode 100, I believe, in leading from the front.
Nice.
So anyways, Miss Jacki, would you like to give us a formal introduction of yourself?
Well, my name's Jacki Fleniken. I will be honest with my age because I'm not ashamed to say I'm 56 years old. I am an empty nester now, except I do have 6 cats. So they might walk by my thing. 4 of them are outside, but 2 of them are running around. But I have 4 adult children, and I have made a lot of transformation changes in my life in the last 2.5 years. And I'm so honored to be here so I can share my story. I got really emotional just listening to your introduction because there's so many people who are like me that are suffering in silence. Yeah. And they're ashamed and they're embarrassed and they feel like nobody will understand. And that's where I was 3 years ago, 4 years, all these, for many years, I just thought it was my problem, that something was wrong with me. So I'm so honored to be here.
And I'm grateful that you're here. I think it's important that people know, the listeners or anybody who is going to pick this up for the first time knows that regardless of what you're going through, you're not alone. You were never alone. We just put ourselves in a position to feel alone. And that at the end of the day, there are people who love and they care about you and they want the best for you. And sometimes it's not an easy road to go down.
It's not.
And no. So before we get into it, I'd like to do a little lighthearted conversation, break up some of the things. You got cats. I love cats.
Yeah, I do. I'm a crazy cat lady.
Hey.
I didn't intend for this. I really didn't. COVID happened. I had a female and a male that we had adopted in the beginning of 2020. And in 2021, my father passed away in January of 2021. He had Alzheimer's and I must have really got drunk, not paid attention to Rita going into heat, because 8 weeks later, she had babies. And I was like, it had to have been. But the ironic thing, just since we're being lighthearted, my father died January 7th. The cats were born May 5th. My mother's name was Rita because we named my cat after my mom. So it's like this whole little gift that they gave me, I guess. They felt like I needed 2 more cats, which I really did. I love them. So yeah, the drinking probably caused a lot of it because when my father passed away, even though I was waiting for it because he was at the end of life, the Alzheimer's was just horrible for him.
Yeah.
I still drowned myself in beer, copious amounts of beer, to cope with the passing of my father.
Yeah, and I understand that. Part of my story involves losing somebody that was important to me, and that was, I would say, part of the reason why my addiction got so bad. Not the full reason, but part of it. And I'm glad that I am here today to a different person, absolute different person. I'm glad you are too.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so we're gonna jump into it, Miss Jacki. Um, how was childhood for you?
Childhood, good parts and bad parts. So I do know that I've done a lot of healing work through that. I'm the youngest of four girls,
Mhm.
and I was the one who was the trickle down effect.
Yeah.
So I was the one that would get beaten. I was the one that would be blamed for a lot of things. And I would say overall I had a good childhood, but then there's those little things that creep in that I realized some of the things that I had to go through in life that unfortunately I went through as a child stayed with me for a lot of years, which probably helped, my reasoning for using alcohol to cope.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I think, like, childhood trauma is a real big motivator for some of the things we do later on in life. And I know when I was a kid, I kind of looked at it as, oh, this is normal, right? Like the way that I'm being treated is normal. And then when I got into therapy, like actual therapy, I took serious note of it. It wasn't. It
Right.
absolutely wasn't. And so I'm gonna say that I'm sorry for whatever you went through when you were a child. You didn't deserve that.
Nobody does, but thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I tell you a really interesting story? I don't know, my brain's going there, but
Absolutely.
after my father had passed, I drove by the house that I grew up in, and I had sent a letter to the owner, and I said, I'd really love to come in and see the house that built me.
Yeah.
And they said no, and that was okay. But about 3 weeks ago, a girlfriend of mine posted on Facebook that she bought a new house, and it was my childhood home. Right? So I
Wow.
messaged her and I said, "Oh my God, I'm so excited for you, but is there any opportunity I can come and walk through the house that built me?" And she said, "Absolutely, we're moving in today." And I went, and now it was really cool because the house was empty. They were moving things in, but I got to go in, and I got to tell little Jacki, "I'm okay now. It's all right. You don't have to be scared. You don't have to be silenced. You can use your voice. Just because your sisters shut you up and covered your mouth and did all these things to keep you quiet, you're okay now." It was very healing. It was very healing to go in there as an adult and realize how far I have come. And because whenever I ended up doing that, it was I think it was April of 2023, and I was still drinking. So now with 2 years of sobriety and me in a totally different path in life, it was such a gift for me to go back and see that house. So I highly recommend anybody if you have the opportunity to go and visit your childhood home, it's worth it. It's worth
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I kind of did something similar, but I sat outside. Um, I grew up in the backwoods of Maryland, and if I were to like knock on somebody's like the door and be like, "Hey, can I come in?" They'd be like, "Who are you and why are you here?" So I parked my truck outside and looked at the house, and I was just like, man, so many memories flooding back. Watching my younger play around the backyard and some of the things in the house. It's it's healing because
Mhm.
that part of you, Sarah, is still very much alive.
Right.
Um, so when did your drinking begin, and how was it? Because some people, they just like dabble in it for fun, and then other people are like, oh shit, I am a full blown alcoholic for my first drink.
Well, the very first time I had a drink, where I would say outside of, like, my parents would let us have little sips of wine at Christmas or Easter or stuff like that. But my parents had gone out of town. I was in eighth grade. My oldest sister was a senior. Not my oldest, my second oldest was a senior. The third oldest was a sophomore. They were having a party, and
Mhm.
they forced me to do half shots of Jack Daniels.
Sure.
And I believe they did that so I wouldn't tell on them.
Mhm.
So I watched my sisters throw parties all the time. So I was an athlete in high school. I was a
Mhm.
field hockey player, gymnast, and a jumper on the track team. But alcohol was my fourth sport in high school, which was crazy because I was a very good athlete. But I tasted I like to call it the pitcher plant. It sucked me in, and it's not. Did I do it to fit in? I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but I did it because that's what I was shown. That's what we do when we get to high school. So it started in high school. Well, 8th grade.
Yeah. I think my first drink, goodness, was I was like 2 or 3, and my mom had wine coolers in the fridge, and I thought that they were Kool-Aid, and I killed the whole thing. And she found me behind the couch. She found me behind the couch with all these empty bottles, and the people that were supposed to be watching me weren't. Um, and I have addiction on both sides of my family. I mean, my mom and my dad, they're both addicts and alcoholics. So kind of learned it from the best, I guess you would say, or the worst, however you depend on it, but or however you look at it. But how soon was it, when you had the first drink, that you became like an active drinker, like you just continued to drink?
Well, in high school, we did it every weekend. We are actually called the Brew Crew. People called us asking us to know where the parties were. So my group of girls, it was like 8 or 9 of us. Yeah. So we became very well known that we were the party girls. So it definitely was a big thing in high school, and college was typical. I didn't drink until Thursdays. We'd go out Thursday night and I drank on Friday and Saturday. So it's like that. Like I'm going to say what I would call normal, but then other people go, I didn't even drink. My boyfriend didn't really drink in college. Like he wasn't around it. His parents didn't drink. So a lot of it was environmental of what I had witnessed and seen. So and then I had children and I quit for a while. I just quit. I was good, and then my mother died when I had my 4th child, and I really couldn't drink because I was breastfeeding Nevin. He was 5 weeks old, but that's when I picked up the cigarettes again because I was like, I needed something because I couldn't, I had 2 little ones at that time. I had 4 kids at that time, but my 2 littlest ones were 15 months and 5 weeks. So I was so there's no drinking. So I would smoke a cigarette just to kind of give me that relief, what I thought I needed. So I did that for a while. And then my ex-husband, I was married at the time, I decided we were just so financially in debt that I picked up a part-time job in a restaurant. And I became a bartender one or 2 nights a week. And I'd get off, I worked night shift, and I'd get off work and I wouldn't eat. So I'd have beer for dinner. And that cycle just happened. And it just, because I ended up staying in the restaurant business for about 12 years as a bartender. Then I went full-time as a bartender. I didn't serve it all. So yeah, it was just that cycle happened. And the next thing you know, I'm drinking every day and drinking. And now instead of drinking 4 beers, I'm drinking 5, then I'm drinking 6, then I'm drinking 7. At the peak, I was averaging 12 beers a day before I jumped off the alcohol train.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I know a lot of people that they've started, their alcoholism or their addiction that way as bartenders, right? And that it kind of escalated out of control, and life got hard for them. How did life start to progress to get like really hard for you when you started ramping up your drinking?
I left the bar business in September of 2020. COVID just really, really here in Pennsylvania, and I'm sure in all parts of the world, really put a damper on my income. And, my income went to 1/3 of what I was making, and it was just emotionally killing me. So I thought, back away, let's get out. And I decided to change careers. And I have done all sorts of different things in my life besides being in the restaurant business. I have done sales. I have done radio advertising, newspaper advertising. I've done a lot of different things. So I thought, I'm going to go in the insurance business because my girlfriend was an insurance agent and I've been watching her for years. And I thought she'd be a good mentor. Yeah. And she wasn't. And she really, when you put all your hope and faith into something, and I was ready, and she said she was going to come back and train me, and she didn't. And I just spiraled, and I fell into a deep depression in December of 21. I felt like a failure because I'd see people and they'd say, "How's your insurance business going?" Because she announced it. I wasn't ready to announce it on Facebook yet. I was going to announce it when I was ready. And she announced it and then never came back. It's a long story. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I didn't realize how narcissistic she was and really what she was. I really didn't see that side of her. So because of me feeling like a failure, I just started drinking and drinking and drinking. And it just to the point of numbing everything I was feeling and silencing the voices in my head, the failure, and the depression turned into anxiety. And I had never really, I've had anxious moments in my life. I might've had a panic attack here or there, but I'd never had a situation where I couldn't go to Target or I couldn't go to the grocery store without having mint. I would have to suck on Ricolas just to have the mint to calm me, or I'd have 3 beers before I'd leave the house. So this whole world just happened, and it spiraled from there out of control, where I know I was waking up with hangovers, and I'd go, well, I'll just have 1 beer at 12.
Yep.
But let's get rid of that feeling. And I'd drink 2 or 3, and then I'd take a break for like 2 hours, and then or whatever. Next thing you know, like behind my kitchen, there's a little shelf behind my shoulder there. And I used to take the tabs off my beer. So I would always knew how much I was drinking, and I never blacked out from it. But I would be on like beer 10, and I'd go, oh, what's more going to hurt? You'll just sleep it off tomorrow. And boom, I'd pop another one. Boom, I'd pop another one. And it was it kept going and going and going. And every day I'd wake up and I'd go, no, I'm not drinking today. I'm not doing this. And then the subconscious mind would say, yes, you are. Because you like that. That brings you comfort. So I was having this battle inside my head of what voice was I going to listen to? In the morning, I was shaming myself, but then hours later, I was drinking again. So,
absolutely. You know, and you talked about that feeling of feeling like a failure and the depression, the anxiety. You know, one of the things that I noticed is that, you know, you have a mental health crisis, and then we turn to our drug of choice. And then because we're on our drug of choice, we feel like shit. And then we just continue that vicious cycle. And, you know, I've paralleled that in my life so many times, feeling like certain feelings. And it's like, okay, well, if I don't want to feel that way, I'm just going to drink. But then I feel bad because I did drink. And then I'm just going to drink again because of that feeling that I had. And it's just that vicious cycle. And I can relate, you know, waking up to the hangovers and be like, oh, you know what sounds really good for this hangover? A beer. And that's really not healthy. I can only, and I don't want to assume, but did your physical health start to decline because of it?
Yes, to a degree. Like, I would notice, I would check my heart rate multiple times a day, because I was like, I feel like my heart's racing. And so I'd check it, and then I'd check it, you know, and I'd Google, okay, what should my heart rate be, or whatever it might. I thought, I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I thought I had irritable bowel syndrome, because it was just like, you know, like bowels were just.
Yeah.
And then when I finally did take a break from alcohol and no longer use alcohol at all, I went the exact opposite. So I didn't have IBS. I had alcohol bowel syndrome, which was wonderful. I'd much rather be, you know, it's great, because I wonder how many people are misdiagnosed, that they think they have IBS and they don't, because they don't tell their doctors how much they're really drinking. Right. So yeah, a little bit things like that. My eyes definitely did not have the brightness. My skin, I would wake up with rosacea, and I knew, you know, like I wasn't sure, was it really rosacea or was it alcohol? I was physically just tired a lot, but also I would just drink to just whatever it might be. So I definitely was not in a good place at all.
Yeah.
At all.
Rock bottom looks different for everybody. What did rock bottom look like for you?
I think the moment that really got me was this fear I had. I was at a celebration of life in July of 2022. And the gentleman that we were celebrating, his life had passed from his addiction to alcohol. Mm-hmm. And he had quit at one point, and then he went back to drinking. And it was just because he loved alcohol so much. Yeah. And at his celebration of life, we were all drinking. at a 1 o'clock celebration of life, but I had to. I was hungover. I needed beer to kill my hangover, that was like, I'm sitting there going, what is wrong with you? And they sat there, and 90% of the stories they talked about with this gentleman was all the stupid shit he did when he was drunk. And I remember sitting there and I thought, fuck, is that going to be me?
Yeah.
Like, I've done a lot in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've coached soccer. I've been on several different boards. I've helped with certain things, I'm not going to tell you my resume because that's not important. But I thought to myself, what am I doing? And the other thing that hit me as I'm at this, he died. And then like a couple months later, his best friend, they found him dead in his apartment, bottles everywhere. He had defecated everywhere. And I remember when I got that call, I cried. And my girlfriend goes, what's the matter? And in my mind, I thought, fuck, that could be me. Right. So all these things started stacking up, and I just started getting like worried of, whoa, one more thing. So my father loved his Jack Daniels. And when he got into when I had to put him in an assisted living for Alzheimer's patients, he was drinking about 50 Jack Daniels a day. So I got nervous that he would go into withdrawal. So his doctor said, okay, Dad, he had the big bottle of Jack. And so he wrote a script on there that said he could have 2 1-ounce drinks a day. By the grace of God, he did not go into withdrawal. But I have that last bottle of Jack. He only drank it for 2 days, and they told him that the bar was closed and he forgot about it. So wherever that subconscious part of your brain is that has to do with alcohol, Alzheimer's must have affected it. So he didn't have any withdrawal symptoms, and he didn't need, after 2 days, he never drank again. But I had that bottle here in my house. And when my father passed, he was cremated, and my third child said, why don't we put his ashes in that bottle of Jack? I said, okay. I said, what a great idea. My dad loved his Jack. No, I'm still, this is 2021. I'm still knee deep. And I remember thinking, how many bottles of Michelob Ultra are they going to have to put me in? Like I thought it was funny. But as I reflect back, alcohol just controlled my dad after he retired. He wasn't drinking 15 ounces when he was a publisher of a newspaper. He had a hell of a career. He wasn't drinking that much until he retired. So alcohol it took his retirement life. And all these things, like I said, kept stacking up. So I think the biggest, probably, did I hit rock bottom? Everybody's definition of rock bottom is going to be different. Did I end up in jail? Did I end up in the hospital? No. But I sat on my front porch and I called my girlfriend who quit, and I left her a voicemail and said, I think I have a problem. How did you do it? And we played voicemail. We tagged back and forth. I never talked to her. So that was the moment that I started searching. What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? How am I going to fix this? And I'll never forget all of those different things that I went through. And that's why I speak up about what I went through, because there's so many people who are just like, there's so many women in their 50s who become empty nesters, who are struggling in life, maybe trying to figure out who they are, because we got caught up in thinking we needed alcohol, and they're scared and they don't know where to go. And that's why I talk it out. I talk about it out loud, because I want people to know you're not alone. And there's so many of us out there that can hold your hand and understand. I get it.
Absolutely. And I can understand that, seeing people that you knew or friends that you knew passing away from either a substance or from other means, that you look and you're like, God damn, like that could be me. Fuck, that could have been me. Right. And like you said, I've done so much dumb shit in my life, in my short 37 years of life, that I'm like, fuck, man, I should be dead by now, but I'm not, by somebody up there. But how did you start to acquire your sobriety? Because some people do it different. Some people go into recovery services. Other people go to AA meetings. Some people just quit cold turkey and say, I don't want it no more.
The first thing I did was, and in January of 2023, Tony Robbins was having a free event for 5 days, 4 or 5 days. And I hopped on that, probably had my beer right here, whatever it was, but I did that. And I just started to think about my life. Because in my 20s, I had done a lot of different sales trainings and I had done a lot of personal growth in my 20s. So I had gotten away from it. So that was like kind of like the catalyst for me to realize I need to make some changes and to really reconnect with who I am inside. But the beer was still in control. And then I found a science-based methodology that I studied very diligently. Started that on April 1st of 2023. Now, the day before I started, I had 16 beers because that woman who I told you about, that I let her back in my life. And she sent me some of the most awful text messages on March 31st that I drank 16 beers. And that was the day I swore I would never speak to her again, because it's like she was like, I was the abused and I was running back to the abuser. And I recognized I have got to get rid of this person in my life. And I started on this journey, and I was able to go in, and I focused on first was the knowledge. And I started to understand how alcohol was affecting me, not only just the habitual habit of it, but also how I was wired to believe that I needed it, which obviously we talked about earlier. I watched my sisters drink. So I did the same thing in high school. My father was a big drinker, and I remember thinking, well, my dad drinks, this is just who I'm supposed to be, right? So I learned a lot of knowledge about why my brain was 5 o'clock, go get your beer, because I wired it into my subconscious. And how I started to understand it was my cats at 5:30, I give them moist food. And I didn't do it right away. I think I started doing it like 4 or 5 years ago. I think my oldest cat is 8. And it was amazing. At 5:20, all of a sudden cats would start walking in my kitchen, right? And I'm like, oh, what time is it? They don't have a clock. They don't have a watch. They don't know what time it is. Their internal system went, hey, it's just weird, right? So I recognize, well, shit, that's what I'm doing with beer. Like I'm just grabbing the koozie, going to the beer fridge, and I'm like, oh, it's just a habit. So I realized I wire into my brain around cigarettes and around alcohol. And so I got all this knowledge. And then I also focused on my feelings and emotions around alcohol. How do I want to feel with my relation with alcohol? And one of the things I really focused on was my whys. Why am I, what kind of life do I want? And one of them was, probably one of the most important was, I don't want hangovers anymore. I'm tired of them. But number 2 was, I want to be alive to see my future grandkids, because I had so much fear that if I didn't change this relationship with alcohol, number 1, if I was alive, my kids would probably have never let me babysit.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to be in that situation where my kids couldn't trust me. So I just really worked very diligently every day. And one of the things I learned from a gentleman named Dean Graziosi, he said, just 1 millimeter shift every day, 1 millimeter shift. And so I remember in the beginning, I'm like in this deep, dark hole. I'm so down in this hole that I can barely see the light out at the top of it. Or I'm in this cocoon and I'm just like, I'm strapped to the alcohol and I'm so handcuffed to it. And I remember thinking, am I ever going to get out of here? Is this really going to work? And I'm 2 freaking years. And I don't know, June 9th, 2023 was my first day. Day 1. And I'm 2 years and a month, whatever it is. What is today? Yeah. So it's like, I never knew where I was going to be 2 years later. So I just want to say to anybody who's listening, don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up, because if you figure out what's your why and you figure out your emotion, because just dropping the behavior doesn't work, because I did the knowledge, the emotion, and the feelings. And then after I spent a lot of time as my drinking was cutting back, the day before I jumped off the train, I call it the train because the train was going faster and faster. Every year it was going faster and faster. And eventually there was going to be no track. It was going to fall into a ravine and I was going to be dead. And so the day before I jumped off the train, I had already whittled it down to 7 beers. And that was huge for me. That was a 45% cut. So I remember feeling a little bit confident. I switched to Heineken Zero. because I'm like, I'm going to continue with the koozie. I'm just going to change the liquid in it because my brain doesn't know. Your brain doesn't know that alcohol is bad for you. It just knows that the way the dopamine hit that you get and how it makes you feel. So I thought, let's just grab that. The brain doesn't realize there's no alcohol in that Heineken Zero. So I did 7 Heineken Zeros my first day and danced in this kitchen and repainted this whole kitchen for the first 2 weeks. I just changed everything up for me to create a whole new life. So I love that this whole kitchen, that's why, some people go, you're in your kitchen. I'm like, yeah, this is where all my healing happened, right here in this kitchen.
Important.
And it's important. And I love it. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. So I'm just so thrilled to be able to come on here and share. But the biggest thing I'm going to say again, just dropping the behavior first doesn't work because it takes willpower. And willpower is finite. And most of the time, willpower will give out, which means, and I've seen this happen with friends of mine. I post all the time on Facebook and Instagram of what I'm doing. And I get so many people like, oh my God, you inspire me, or this or that. And they'll drop it. They'll drop the liquid for a while. And I just talked to someone recently and they said, well, I started drinking again. I said, well, it's time you call me. Let me help you understand why you're picking it up again, because your brain is expecting it. It's wired. It's hardwired in there. And you can change. They're saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's a lie. You can. And it's glorious when you do.
Absolutely. Reprogramming your brain is something I live for. Absolutely something I live for. There's a really good author, if you're a reader, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he is phenomenal. And he talks about reprogramming your brain to become supernatural. And it's a beautiful thing. I practice it quite often. But you hit on a lot of good points, a lot of things. First, I want to say I'm proud of you. 2 years is huge, and I hope that you're giving yourself a pat on the back and that you're very proud of yourself, because that's an accomplishment. Every day that you're sober is an accomplishment. It should be celebrated.
Yeah, I do.
Good. Second thing is Tony Robbins. I love Tony Robbins. He's I found videos of his all over social media when I needed him. And I think the very first one that I seen, I've always seen how eccentric he was, and I was like, I don't like that guy because he's just so out there.
Right.
But when I got into recovery, I started appreciating him. And the very first video I remember seeing was one where he was talking to a guy in the crowd, and he walked up to him. He said, "Why do you hate yourself?" And I hated myself at that point. Like, even in my early recovery, I hated myself. And he said, "Is it because the red shoes?" And I had red shoes at the time. And I was like, "You're talking to me, but you're talking to this guy." Right. And then he went to talk about self-love and how important self-love is. And that really hit me hard, brought me to tears and everything like that. So Tony Robbins is great.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. And, I don't think people fully understand like how the brain is wired when it comes to substance, right? Like, we start to look at some of the substances and we think, oh, hey, just one more is going to be okay. And we're not changing we're not changing the behavior. We're not changing the thought process. And we're not changing the structure of how we live our life off of it. Sometimes people are like, oh, I'm just not going to drink. And then they put it down. Like you said, your friends come back to you and they're like, oh, I picked up again. And I've been to that point in my life so many times where I've been like, oh, I'm just going to get sober. Or I wasn't even sober. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't in counseling, nothing like that. And I would just put the drink down and I'd be like, oh, I don't need it no more. I'm getting sober for this person. And then that person would leave and I'm like, well, I got nobody to be sober for. Here we go. And so I wasn't doing anything to myself, but also was not, I wasn't rewiring my brain, the conscious and subconscious awareness of the substance in front of me. And so I think that's really important for that, but also for people to know like the effects that it has on the human body, like at a short term and long term effects, and I didn't know what it does to the human brain. I didn't know that there's onset or, that it can can develop schizophrenia. Like, I just thought schizophrenia was something that crazy people get, and then you get put into a mental institution. But there is alcohol onset schizophrenia, and that blew my mind when I first found out about it. Uh, but you are doing absolutely phenomenal. What does life look like for you right now?
Life is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's the best I could ever ask for because I live in the present moment. I'm clear. I'm clarity. The clarity is there. I am calm, like so much calmer than I ever could imagine. I tell this story about my youngest is 21, and he came home last summer for summer break from college. And I came downstairs one day and I've got the freezer drawer on the bottom and it was opened. And the Jacki that was drinking would have been angry and I would have been like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And I just I shut it. And he came downstairs later that day and I said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you just make sure you shut that freezer door when you're done with it? He said, sure, Mom. You know, just, it's like that calmness, because what people don't realize that I didn't realize, I might not have been drinking at the moment. I mean, I drank every day. But even though you might not have a hangover, your body is still working very, very hard to metabolize that in your system. So as your kidneys trying to work on it, your liver, your blood, all that stuff is causing you to have tension in your body that you don't realize that's going on, because all of that is working to try to rid your body of a toxin that's not supposed to be there. And so I'm just going to give a little tidbit on that, if you don't mind. You know, as we drink, we get what we call, you get a dopamine hit. You get a fake dopamine synthetic hit from it. And that's why you get all excited and you have that first drink. But then our bodies we create this chemical called dynorphin. And the dynorphin comes in and eats it up. I call it like little Pac-Man trying to come and eat it all up, right? So that's why you get tired, and then you keep chasing that buzz so that you get that dopamine, that dynorphin, that dopamine, that endorphin. And so as our body's working so hard, we don't realize it's working so hard. So as I rid my body of all the chemicals that were in there and all the, you know, it takes up to 2 years to get back to homeostasis. So I guess I'm pretty much back because I'm 2 years plus. But I love that my calmness is there as a result of everything that I was able to walk away from. The cigarettes I did March 18th, 2024, because I didn't want to shock my body at once. So I didn't quit them both at the same time. But what I did, I used the same methodology to use to get alcohol in my life is the same thing I did with cigarettes. I started paying attention to the way I felt. And that's what I did with alcohol too. Before I jumped off the train, I really sat there and I forced myself one night to drink 11 beers. I sat here at this table and I videotaped myself. And I'm saying to myself, Jacki, you're at beer number 11. You don't like the way you feel. Why are you doing this to yourself? And I did that because I knew June 9th was going to be my day. And I wanted to remind myself, if I thought about drinking, go watch your videos. And I never had to. It's just, I got very blessed. I worked hard in the beginning. I never really got the trigger or the cravings because I really got all that knowledge. So once again, I go all over the place with your answer to that, but life is amazing. I have more fun now than I've ever had. I met a gentleman on my birthday in October of 24, and he maybe used to drink 4 beers a month, and he doesn't drink anymore. He just doesn't eat, because I've worked with him and talked to him about, watch how you feel after you drink that beer or that glass of wine and really see how it tastes. And we just have so much fun, and we laugh and we giggle and I dance and I'm goofy and my true authentic self came back. And what I love that you talked about a minute ago, what Tony talked about, of self-love. And I think, you know, most of us, when you are using alcohol, copious amounts of it, like I was, and you sound like you were too, we didn't love ourselves. Because if you loved yourself, you wouldn't poison, you wouldn't put yourself through that. I tell people, if you ate a piece of food that made you upset and upset your stomach, would you eat it again the next day? No. But yet we were programmed to drink so much alcohol. So it was about 6 months alcohol free. I was in this kitchen and I had my Spotify on, and Whitney Houston's Greatest Love of All came on. Mm-hmm. And I sat here and I bawled like a baby because I finally love myself again. It's not about anybody else. It's about finding love for me, because what I learned, there's only one person that's going to be with me my entire life, and that's me. And if I don't like me, what kind of life am I going to have? So I'm continually working on myself, because I want to make sure up until my dying day that I have a great life. And all of it, what's in that rear view mirror, that it's back there. But I love that my windshield is bigger and I have the whole future ahead of me, and I'm not handcuffed to alcohol anymore. And and cigarettes, but really that alcohol, because it was ruining me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, you don't have that tie to cigarettes because you don't drink no more.
Well, I did smoke more when I was drinking, but I was still smoking after I quit. But I think it was that habit. It was the,
Yep.
oh, I'm having a cup of coffee, or, oh, I'm kind of hungry, but I don't want to cook yet, so I'll have a cigarette. And it was, and I feel like I don't like the way it tastes. What am I doing? And I finally just smoked the last cigarette in the pack, and I said, don't go buy anymore. And I went, you don't need this, because especially after proving to myself that I could walk away from 12 beers a day. It was a lot of work, guys. I'm not telling you just to walk away. It's not that. So for some people, they can maybe do spontaneous sobriety, but it's not. It's very few and far between. And from the things I've read and the research I've done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have, I had that song that I found that did the same thing to me that it did to you. It's a little bit heavier song, but it's literally it's called I Think I Might Love Myself.
Mhm.
And the lyrics are literally like conversations that I've had with myself. And I'm like, holy shit, this is where I'm at in life. And it's just so beautiful and awesome. And what a great moment to have that moment where you're like, I finally fucking love myself.
Right.
And that's a beautiful moment to have. One final question before I get to my last one is how some people have really terrible relationships with their children when they're drinking, and then they get sober, and then there's that moment where everything kind of just fits back together. Did you have a bad relationship with your kids, or was it kind of like something like they're like, oh hey, yeah, that's just mom, that's just what she does?
I mean, there were times that I'm sure did not, the drinking would have caused certain situations that I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
Because my inhibitions are down, my brain's being altered. So I spoke up more when I was drinking, because I was silenced so much as a child that I needed the alcohol to speak up.
Yeah.
So my kids, whenever I decided to stop and take a break from alcohol, and I say take a break, I quit. Remember in the beginning, I didn't say I quit because I didn't want to, my brain was going to try to prove me wrong. Your brain will do that to you. It will try to prove you wrong. So, but I remember when I told them I was going to, stick by your phone. I don't know if I'll go into withdrawals or I'll have any situations. And my one daughter said, I didn't know you had a problem. I'm like, yeah, well, at beer number 11, you still didn't realize I was at beer number 11, because I could still talk pretty normally because of my body was so accustomed to it. So I have apologized to my children for not fully being present there for them, and not being able to drive them certain places at night because I knew I'd be drinking. So their world, unfortunately, had to revolve around mine. And I can't go back and shame myself. I can forgive myself because I was only using the tools that I had at the time that I thought that I needed. So I suggest to anybody who might be listening, who feels that, that feels that maybe their children are upset with them or whatever, just write a forgiveness letter. Write a forgiveness letter first to yourself, and then write a forgiveness letter to your children. You don't necessarily have, or anybody you want to, you don't have to necessarily give it to them. That's up to you. But there's healing in writing that stuff down, because you have all this stuff in your mind that you might be worried about. So dump it out and write a letter. And like I said, so I've done that. I've done a lot of journaling around that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. I'm glad that you have a great relationship with your kids. Unfortunately, my dad is still drinking.
and him and I don't have the greatest relationship. He got sober for a few years,
Mhm.
and I was the one that was spiteful toward him because I was like, man, fuck you, because you raised me this way. And I even went to one of his speaker meetings when he was in AA, and I was just like, dude, you're a hypocrite. I didn't say that to him. But then I got sober and he relapsed and he's still out there. And
Mhm.
you know, I'm happy for my recovery, but I can't take responsibility for his. So I'm just
Okay.
glad that I'm in the position I'm in to be able to talk to people and help people in the way
Right.
that I am.
Right.
Um, so before we go, I always ask my guests this: what are 3 things you're grateful for?
Oh goodness, uh, three's only a few. I mean, my goodness gracious, I'm so grateful for the life that I've been able to create. I'm grateful for. We haven't even touched on this. If it's okay, I touch real quickly. I'm
Okay.
grateful that I made the decision. Like I'm an alcohol freedom and transformation coach. So I offer what I've learned, because one of the things I did learn from Tony is find somebody who has what you want and learn from them and get what you want. So then I decided to pay it forward because I never wanted anybody sitting on their front porch scared and afraid. I'm so grateful for all the tools that I've been given over the course of the last 2.5 years that I used for myself, that I now can offer to other people and guide them. Because, like I said, there's so many people that are suffering in silence. So I'm so grateful that all these things fell into my lap that I could use to bring to others. And I'm grateful for the life that I've been able to create and to really have found freedom. And when I say freedom, I mean freedom. If people are drinking around me, it doesn't bother me. That's their choice. I have had things that have taken me to my knees in the last 2 years. I mean, to my knees. And because of all the work I did and the rewiring of my brain, I never once thought about running to alcohol. I sat with my feelings and I worked through it. And I don't care what other people think. Guys, don't worry about what other think. They don't care what's in your glass. In the beginning, I thought maybe, oh my gosh, what are people going to think that I'm drinking an NA beer? And I'm like, I don't care. So I'm so grateful that I have put myself first, because nobody else was going to save me but me. And with God's help and my spirit guides and my guardian angels, my mom, my dad are up there. I am so grateful for everyone who never gave up on me, especially little Jacki
Absolutely.
inside, who said, listen, in there is that warrior. You just have to find her again. And all of you have it. We all have the answers inside. We just have to work through and break down the beliefs and habits that we have. Because unfortunately, a lot of the beliefs that I had weren't even my own. They were ones that other people gave me. So,
Absolutely. They were fabricated beliefs about
yeah,
yourself.
exactly.
Well, Miss Jacki, I want to say thank you for spending this time and sharing your story.
Mhm.
Thank you for your vulnerability, and thank you for who you are as a human being.
Thank you.
And everybody, I want to take a moment and say thank you for hanging out with us for this amount of time. Thank you for listening. Just know that it's okay to love yourself. It's
Mhm.
okay to not be okay,
Mhm.
and be kind to yourself. You are loved, you are worthy, and you are worth it. Have a nice day.